All right. So, Greg, it's I know that Greg's a scuba diver, by the way, Daniel, and Daniel Greg is one of our guests of honor today, and is working on a couple of really amazing initiatives in the blue economy. So he's really excited to share some of that. I know that you're doing a couple of things. I'm just going to let a couple of minutes roll by and make sure that we let different people into the room. Sergio's just made it on. Hey, Sergio.
Can you hear me? Sylvia, can you hear me now?
Yep, I hear you.
Awesome. Sorry, setting up Microsoft Teams is always fun. How are you doing?
Yeah, please. Doing well. Thank you.
How are you doing, Greg?
Doing well.
I'm excited about these events. Finding, I spoke with Sylvia this morning, and it's great that we're really working to build the ecosystem down here for Ocean Solutions, and I'm really excited to share with you guys today what we're working on. And oh, there you go. I was curious. Sylvia's still there.
I'm excited about it too. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. And then, and is it Enderoglu? Sorry, I'm probably butchering your name. How are you doing?
Yep, Esber. Professor Esber.
Oh, Professor Esber. Okay. How are you doing?
Professor Esber is also at University of Miami, much like you, and is somebody that's super integral and the main liaison officially from UN. So it's, I think, someone that you should definitely connect with as you roll through. And Sergio, I don't think, has gotten a chance to introduce himself. As Sergio has done a lot of work with the indigenous people in Bolivia. We were collaborating a couple of years ago in the early days when I was basically looking at licensing and commercializing technology out of universities like MIT. And he sort of does a lot of feasibility between the government of Bolivia and MIT in Boston, and just amazing individual. Sergio, thanks for listening in. Tomas is also calling in from Chile. He's a new and important ally for us, particularly for a lot of the blue economy work. So glad to see that rolling in. And yeah, let me see up there. Yep, Daniel. There we go, Daniel. I'm just seeing your text message right now.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we don't have a newsletter. We need to get like an automated newsletter email, like in the email listserv going. So like, so there's like reminders the day before, the day of. I know Greg has mentioned it to him to make sure that it can be on his calendar, because so we need to make sure to get a little bit more organized about that. We'll add that as a to-do, Daniel. And we do have a draft MOU that we started to put together that I'm gonna put into circulation. I don't know if you guys have access to the chat feature here, if you're able to access it, but if not, if so, I can drop a link into the latest version of the MOU for the blue economy there.
It says the chat's only available for team members.
All right, well, we'll see how we can open that up later. Hey, Kat. All right, we have Grace has joined us as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started and rock and roll. I mean, one thing I want to share with everybody is that Impact Edition, one of our sister companies at Logos, has released an article on the blue economy and the blue bonds for the work that we've been doing in town of Miami Lakes with middle school students that have put together a proposal on how to prevent sea level rise, or prevent flooding, I should say, in the town of Miami Lakes, including a number of measures like creating more porous system, changing the legislation so like that in the construction and new construction, there is more drainage, natural draining systems that aren't just like straight cement and poured concrete on the pavement, backflow valves, drain systems and pumps. One of the things that has come up as a request from them is how we might be able to help them finalize and fine tune the math behind the cost of their systems in implementing it at a citywide level. And of course, and that's going to be super integral in terms of us calculating payback periods and whether or not something like a blue bond or how we can structure a blue bond for something like that. So that's one of those things that sort of is pending. It'd be great to sort of lean on you, Esber, and then maybe Hardeep in the future to talk a little bit about these, talk with these students and see what they have, to see what's needed and how we need to engage Town and Miami Lakes, if needed officially or in what capacity. So it's going to be a learning lesson for me and Esber, for example. Daniel, for your knowledge base, has been advising. He's part of a consortium of multidisciplinary academians from University of Miami that are deployed by the university as a multidisciplinary group to tackle the issues that our local community is facing, right? And then put the academic theories into real world practice. Very beautiful, and as a really integral part of that group at UM, and also very interested in the blue economy. So it's a great honor and privilege to have him participating and have his support. But yeah, so I think those are that's the main two things, right? We want to start getting some key feedback on the MOU for collaborating together with all the members, and then we have these middle school students Impact Edition. For those of you that might be following it, Impact Edition is a blog, and they're also on LinkedIn. I also made a post about the work that these middle school students are doing. So check that out, reshare with your community if you want the word out in English and get more support at a local level, and see if we can maybe make that one of the first municipal bonds in Florida, one of the municipal blue bonds in Florida. I think that'd be really exciting. And it seems quite feasible, just given the size of the community and sort of the drive that's happening by the students. So I want to present Daniel. So maybe I'd love to introduce you, let you take it from here, and introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, and maybe what would be ideal is to let our partners know a little bit about yourself, your story, what you're working on right now, your call to action, and then obviously the solicitation that you're making, so we can get the word out in getting as many applicants we can for the blue economy business builder that you're putting together. And then we can open up the floor if anybody has anything else before that you guys might want to share, let us know, or any requests or ask from the collective for the record that you might want to add. That would be a great time to do so.
All right. If not, I'll just jump in. Yeah. Before I do, I just wanted to actually bring up a interesting point. I know you said there's local work happening between academia and focusing, of course, on the blue economy and ocean impact. I'm also involved with Ocean Visions. They're actually based out of Georgia Tech, consortium of a lot of different oceanographic research institutions, and they'd be a great organization to look into as well. So happy to connect you. With that, I'm going to share my screen, and bear with me. It's my first time using Microsoft Teams screen share, but I think I'll get this working momentarily. But I real quick want to just kind of highlight what I'm doing at Seaworthy Collective as background, and then I'll just go through our entire story. But first off, I just want to thank Sylvia for this opportunity. Really excited to really connect with the local blue economy. Beyond that, my background, I actually spent the last 5 years in marine robotics as a mechanical engineer and really test engineer and pilot as well. And so for me, it's actually very full circle because I'm originally from South Florida and haven't lived in South Florida actually since high school. So it's coming back has been both an exciting opportunity, especially with a lot of the new momentum happening, as well as something that I'm really passionate about building here. So with that, Silvio, you guys can see my screen okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Perfect. All right. Just wanted to make sure before I jumped in. Awesome. So just a little bit of background on my why before we get into my full experience. I'm sure a lot of you guys know a lot of the stats that are on here, but for me, actually, James Cameron's dive to the Marianas Trench back in 2012 was really where my passion was ignited for the ocean space. A lot of my friends that I studied mechanical engineering with wanted to go into space exploration, but once I heard about the Deep Sea Challenge, that really opened my eyes not only to the technical challenge, but of course, how little we knew about the oceans. And on the other side, I've always been a staunch environmentalist, and so knowing things like how 90% of ocean fish or global fish stocks have been exploited, overexploited, or depleted, or the fact that we're on pace to have more plastic than fish in our oceans by 2050, and the role the oceans play in climate change and really absorbing our excess heat, all were really driving factors for me. But more than anything, it was really the fact that we're killing our oceans faster than we can explore them, and that's where my passion was really born. And so I graduated from the University of Florida for my bachelor's in mechanical engineering back in 2015. And during my time in undergrad, I became a University Innovation Fellow, which are students in innovation and entrepreneurship from all over the world. We get to spend a week at Stanford and Google and really immerse ourselves in design thinking and systems thinking. And that's very much how I approach the field, which I'll touch on momentarily. At the same time in undergrad, I got to intern at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, doing unmanned underwater vehicle design for them, specifically working on the Clio AUV. It's a vertically profiling underwater vehicle that did biogeochemical sampling. The biology goes over my head, but the hydrodynamic simulations were really cool. After I graduated, I ended up working for Bluefin Robotics in Boston, their MIT spinout, where I was a pilot and test engineer for their vehicles, pictured on the right. And actually 6 months into me working there, they got bought out by General Dynamics, a defense contractor. And so I said, if I was going to work in defense, I might as well not deal with winter as a native South Floridian. So I found a job working in San Diego, where I spent the last 3 years as a contractor on at the Naval Information Warfare Center, working for a company called Leidos. And after 3 years there, part of my goal was actually to end up working at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and get my master's at UCSD originally. But I found the opportunity to come back to South Florida and get my master's in exploration science here at the University of Miami that I'm just wrapping up as an even better option. And more importantly, I've been working on Seaworthy, actually putting the pen to paper on it in March of 2019, and really saw the opportunity of having a major university behind me, and of course all the resources that have evolved in South Florida since I left, to really be able to tap into and launch this. And so we launched September of last year, so it's been just over 6 months now. And so this may be no surprise to a lot of you, but in general, just some of the harsh realizations I made in the field during my past 5 years plus started at Woods Hole. Of course, seeing that public funding being so minimal, if not declining, really prevented there from being further opportunity for me to continue on professionally there, in addition to hamstringing the projects and research that was going on that was public funding dependent. And so then after I graduated and worked at Bluefin Robotics, as I mentioned, they got bought out by a defense contractor, General Dynamics. And so within 6 months of me working there, I saw how the defense and, well, primarily the defense industry in my experience, but in general, how private interests have monopolized ocean innovation. And that was the most stark to me working for the Navy the last 3 years, seeing folks from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in and out of my lab on a daily basis. And so really became this harsh realization that ocean science and innovation are primarily occurring as this byproduct of serving private interests, rather than for the sake of actually solving the problems of our time, like ocean, plastics, overfishing, acidification, list goes on. And as a systems thinker, I, of course, saw that big picture, but finally data came out at the beginning of this year with this report called the Ocean 100, which I highly recommend, that characterized the top 100 corporations making up the majority of the blue economy. And no surprise to me, those were in fact made up of fossil fuels and defense industries primarily, over 60% of those companies. And so as an innovation concept, this really limits the scope of actual development of solutions when we think about where these solutions are going to come from to actually solve the problems of our time. If the publicly funded research institutions are forced to turn to private funding to stay afloat, and those private funding have no interest in actually solving these problems, the system just isn't going to serve to develop those solutions. And so that systemic lack of opportunity is really where Seaworthy Collective was born. But in addition to that, we really saw that sustainability just wasn't going to be enough to actually solve these problems. Because when you think about sustainability, it's really about mitigation rather than actually solving the root cause, right? So sustainability essentially says we're going to recycle plastics, rather than the regenerative perspective of developing alternatives to get it out of the supply chain. Sustainability says we can sustainably fish from 90% from fish stocks that have been 90% exploited, overexploited, or depleted, rather than focus on regenerative aquaculture, right? So really, we really try to drill into what are the solutions that actually solve these problems and allow us to have real sustainable yield, rather than something that actually is only keeping us where we're at best. And so, of course, out of anywhere, South Florida is this real ground zero for anthropogenic impact, since we're going to be underwater by 2100 if nothing changes. And so our mission is to empower this community of current aspiring entrepreneurs to innovate for this regenerative ocean impact. And one of the things I've really leaned into along the way is value-driven business. And for me, primarily, I lead with authenticity and empathy more than anything else. And so who we are, first and foremost, is a startup community. Everything that we do serves our community, but how we activate that community is through a venture studio. And what that allows us to do is to both co-create startups, but we also crowdsource existing startups as well to develop what we call collective ocean innovation pipelines that are actually scalable. And so basically what we're doing is connecting cities with regenerative blue economy potential and connecting the existing innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem there with the regenerative blue economy. So what we're doing is actually partnering with those local incubators and accelerators to tailor or verticalize their programs to serve our pipelines. And we do this as a hybrid social impact joint venture model where we have a fiscally sponsored 501c3 and our standalone LLC, really creating that business case for regenerative ocean impact. And so if you haven't heard of Venture Studio, it's a relatively new model. I like to say it flips the scripts on incubators. So instead of us seeking out people with ideas and relying on hope as a strategy that these solutions are out there, we say we know the areas that we can create impact. We call those our opportunities for sea change. And we can actually bring people together, create an inclusive and interdisciplinary and accessible opportunity for people to actually build teams and build solutions that we can then fund to get these things going off the ground. So really it's about that ground up from ground floor all the way to idea phase so that we can plug them into the incubators and accelerators and get these solutions going rather than relying on hope as a strategy. And so we're really the first ocean impact focused venture studio in the continental US. There's actually one up and coming in Alaska as well. But more importantly, we're also building this innovation pipeline and resources for South Florida's first ocean incubator and accelerator. And so I've built now a team of 21, both grad students, even some undergrads and early career professionals. You know, we're all volunteer, we're pre-revenue right now, but we're just starting to seek our first raise. And, you know, for me, the best part of all of it's been seeing people who have the background doing the work that we really are working to accomplish through our venture studio and beyond, come and join our team and lend their skill sets. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is creating an opportunity for people with a passion, but not necessarily the background, but a passion for the ocean space to get in and apply their skills to actually contribute. And so actually I meant to mention a couple of people on my team that are on board now. Max, you know, has a background in angel investing. Ben's been doing Fortune 100 and 500 marketing. Angela's been working in PR for years as well. And our programs consultant, who I have to leave confidential, also works at a local incubator. So all in all, we're really kind of having all aspects of the business now really accounted for in our team. But beyond that, where we really build our foundation is with our network. And so we've actually, I can't keep this slide updated enough. We continue to add to our network. We're closer now to 50 mentors and collaborators, both from the innovation and entrepreneurship space and the ocean space, who all together really lend their network and resources to empower our community. Beyond that, as you guys might have heard, there's quite a movement happening from Silicon Valley here to Miami. And so we're really working to tap into that growing startup ecosystem, in addition to the wealth of marine research and business happening here in Miami as well. And so some of the collaborators we've already brought on board include Five Gyres, who's a leading nonprofit in marine plastics, Regenerative Resources Co., who we just had a panel with the other week, who's working to really scale carbon sequestration through mangroves. Ocean Exchange, you may know, Millie Pitts is a good collaborator with us. They're funding, you know, sustainable initiatives as well. So, and of course, University of Miami, where I'm getting my master's right now, is also behind us. So all in all, we have an incredible group of collaborators behind us, but we also have some awesome mentors as well. Most recently, we've got Dr. Mark Abbott, the past president of Woods Hole Oceanographic, on board with us, but also Vita Wade in Montserrat, who's doing some incredible work empowering youth to really get into the oceans and even learn to swim. But beyond that, a couple other people, Peter Coughlin, who's actually been mentoring me and was the one who turned me on to Venture Studio as a past principal at IDEO and now running his own Venture Studio. And Brian Von Hertzen's also leading the efforts in carbon sequestration through seaweed. So all in all, we have a lot of the different areas that we're seeking to make impact covered with the mentor network we've created. But beyond that, we take this network and we really channel it through our panels. And that makes the expertise that they have accessible and really, more importantly, empowering and inspiring our community to take the leap into entrepreneurship. So this is really our social impact piece, where we're making these experts accessible. We're bringing people together. You know, there's opportunities for Q&A and getting people really, you know, in the same room virtually, obviously, as these experts that they may never get to cross paths with otherwise. And if any of you have experience in the maritime field, I mean, even from my own experience, getting to talk to people who are really doing the work you're passionate about, there is a level of exclusivity about it, and that's one of the barriers that we're really working to break down. Beyond that, we also have our pitch competitions that serve as our vehicle for crowdsourcing startups, and all of that plugs into our partner incubator and accelerator programs. Beyond that, as I mentioned, we're just starting our first raise, and again, as this hybrid model, we're seeking both philanthropic and corporate sponsorships, in addition to investing partners who actually either, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are already educated on the space, but if not, we are happy to provide resources on that. And beyond that, of course, get equity stakes in our startups. And the idea is that there is the pre-venture, the venture studio pre-seed round, and then after the incubator, an additional round afterwards. And I'll dive into what that all looks like momentarily. But this is really the crux of what we're doing. So these are the 6 areas that we're looking to co-create and crowdsource startups that we call our opportunities for sea change. And the key thing to understand about each of these areas is that individually, they each have great potential for impact, but as collective systems, they have a much greater potential for impact, and more importantly, really build local scale regenerative blue economies. And so you take something like an aquaculture fish farm, right? And you pair that with a seaweed farm that's sequestering carbon, sequestering the nutrients of the waste of those fish and mitigating those impacts. And then also buoying that with the coastal resilient mangrove forest or reef project to actually keep the seaweed from getting washed away and maintain that ecosystem. And then monitoring that ecosystem with a sensor network that could be powered by ocean energy, and then even have a services business to keep that ecosystem pristine and those products pristine. So all in all, you're creating a system that actually has much more staying power than individual solutions. And the best part of all of this is it's completely scalable. So we can take, again, our model starting with our community, feed them into our venture studio where we co-create startups, vet those co-created startups, and crowdsource additional startups through our pitch competition that all together creates this collective pipeline that we feed into our partner incubator and accelerator programs and launch at least 10 startups a year. And so the beauty of this model is the first 3 quarters of this timeline you see is the scalable piece that we can go to these other cities with existing innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems and the potential for a regenerative blue economy, connect those dots with the resources we provide and the network that we've built, and really start building these ground up solutions in cities beyond just South Florida. And so that's really the goal of what we're doing is, of course, South Florida is home for me. I've moved cross country 3 times. I'm not going anywhere. This is where we want to build out. But at the end of the day, we want to build local scale impact on a broader scale. And really by doing that, we enable eventually a much larger overall impact. And so just recently I finished building our big, hairy, audacious goal, which is our 10-year goal. And really what we're aiming to do is grow and develop over 3,000 co-created and crowdsourced regenerative ocean impact ventures by the end of the ocean decade in 2030. But right now we're just focused on our 3-year raise that gets us to scaling to the first additional city and creating our first additional pipeline. So to do that, we're seeking 7.7 million in our first raise. So I'm going to stop here and answer any questions, and then I'll get into our ask after that. Any questions?
Awesome. Amazing presentation. We love it a lot.
Appreciate
Could
it.
you talk a little bit about the sourcing of the different strategies and how you're collecting them together? The slide where you're highlighting a little bit of what is usually a blue economy cluster and a couple of different solutions all working together.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as you're saying, how are we seeking those entrepreneurs?
The clusters and the different solutions that you are integrating.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So then I'll just jump back to that real quick. Hold on. So basically, where we're really focused on again is really in solutions that can not only make profit but make impact, right? And so when we talk about who has gotten to know the power of seaweed, that's honestly the quote unquote technology that I'm most excited about. But beyond that, we're really looking at solutions that right now, of course, can make major impact here in South Florida. As you guys may have heard, the Biscayne Bay, they've announced $20 million to fix the bay. And these are the solutions that can do that, right? Mangroves and seaweeds and seagrasses all can take those nutrients out of the water that are causing red tide. And so, when we think about the local impact that we want to drive, and the fact that there's already opportunity here, we can literally build businesses that are able to solve these problems. But in addition to that, we also have a partnership that we're working on with an organization called the Blue Action Lab nearby in the Bahamas that actually is allowing us to prototype and develop these solutions without the typical policy roadblocks in the way that have kept us from developing these solutions further. So actually, Sylvia, I'm just going to jump ahead real quick because I think the point that you raised really just is a perfect segue into just some of the little breakdown of what I have here. So just in general, the opportunities of each of these segments, the U.S. right now is only responsible for 1% of global aquaculture, which is a huge opportunity, huge missed opportunity, and more importantly, also really doing a number on wild fish stocks. As I mentioned, 90% exploited, overexploited, or depleted. But even when you look at the global distribution of these startups, the U.S. is lagging behind in a lot of ways. So that's just one area, but I can walk through the rest of them. But again, I'll do one at a time. Any other questions before I keep going?
Yeah, no, I think that's where the interest is right now. Use all together. We do, one of the goals of this consortium, if you will, is to have different solutions at each one of these different verticals. Yeah. Plastics pollution detection, for example, we had last month somebody presenting on different solutions that are providing waste to energy and plastic being the waste that's created into energy. I just, for example, invested into a company called Aqua. Small angel investment, was doing a crowd raise. Aqua is using seaweed, a growing seaweed under massive kelp to create alternative protein burgers, for example, and the jerky and things like this that are in there, right? So now we have someone else that's a female-led business, by the way, out of the Northeast. So Northwest, excuse me. So we're trying to bring all these elements together. Do you think that we can do these, set up our own blue cluster in South Florida, or do you think that we would need, different, the blue cluster in the Caribbean would be very different than the one that we might need in Chile, or very different than the one that's used in the Northwest versus what's used in maybe with stave in Australia versus what's right. So maybe there's some of the, I don't know if there's some thought that you can mention to this behind seawater as an energy resource, for example, in tidal energy and wave, maybe in the Caribbean, just very slight versus right. Something that's really rough like Ireland or wherever. So just a little bit of that train of thought and sort of what you're envisioning so far.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, everything we do is community driven, right? And I mean, for us, I'm happy if we're focusing on one at a time or all six at once, right? At the end of the day, we just need to get these started. And I think, part of the reason, and we talked about this earlier, part of the reason I left South Florida, right, is I didn't even see the opportunity here. And so the point is, this is a starting point, right? And we need to see, what the local stakeholders are willing to support, obviously, what people resources we're able to get with expertise, obviously, as well, to attract to South Florida and really build these out. I do know there's interest as I continue to build out our network. There's great work actually happening in Puerto Rico using the sargassum that washes up on our beach as livestock feed to cut methane. That's another huge opportunity. And we just throw it out. So, I think it very much is, mix of what the community we build here is seeking to accomplish, and at the same time, what are the unique local challenges that we're looking to build? Because I think every blue cluster, although yes, there are some standards, of course, but everyone should be unique to each ecosystem, and more importantly, inclusive of the people there that they can leverage their expertise. And especially here, with our history, especially in the seafood industry, right? I mean, we need to find a way to transition that industry to aquaculture, right, and to these actual sustainable sources as well. So I think that's a great starting point as well. But the other side is leveraging things like the port and leveraging shipping and cruise lines, right, that are already the existing players here that would have an interest in this area to, if it's, as sad as it is, greenwashing their image at the very least, but hopefully actually trying to develop something for the local economy and give back.
Amazing. Yeah, great points, Daniel, and I think worth saying. Greg, I know has a question, but yes, though there can be best practices generally for different blue clusters, there needs to be some personalization. Great point, Greg.
So, Daniel, how are you finding the startups? What is your approach to getting these? Are you working with the universities? Are you working with local other incubators to pull these out? What is your methodology for this?
Yeah, so actually I'm gonna go back a couple slides. So really our focus, right, is on community building. That's really where my expertise is, right? And so for me, what we've been doing, I went too far. What we've been doing is putting on these events that we really are able to attract people and have a consistent turnout. We've had, for the first 3 events we had this year, 170 and 80 registrations per event. So we're able to bring people together around these key areas that there is genuine interest, number one. Number two, and really what I lean into more than anything, is the strength of the network, right? And so basically, we're making a push with our collaborators. I've been talking with Paul Holthus, the CEO of World Ocean Council. I'm, working with a lot of different stakeholders across, most of my network is out of Florida. And so it's about leveraging our network to get these opportunities out there. And especially being in grad school right now, I can say students are struggling for opportunities. And, obviously we're not just targeting students, but, there is this whole, I think, tunnel vision of people in the academic sector that think public sector or academia and that's it, right? They don't even consider innovation and entrepreneurship. So first off is really just creating the avenue to break down those barriers and get people thinking outside the box on what they can do career-wise. But beyond that, it's really just, again, leaning into the network. Basically, as I mentioned, we have the past president of Woods Hole on board with us, and he's supportive of what we're doing. And obviously his network is lucrative. So it's very much just leaning into what we built network and community wise. And beyond that, it is that is the one place that we can't control, right? So it's very much at the same time having faith that between the 4 major oceanographic research institutions we have down here and other talent we can attract from elsewhere, because these days now more and more people are moving to Miami anyway. We can build this here. And so it's that combination of making this an accessible opportunity, which really for the ocean tech and innovation field is a relatively unheard of thing in my experience. And beyond that, just really taking on the moment that's happening here in Miami with all of the tech scene evolving. And, I spoke with Melissa Krinsman last week, and, they're very supportive of what we're doing here with Venture Miami. And so, there is a lot of momentum behind us to really get this out there.
And it's also part of the goal of our conversation today, Greg.
Exactly.
As Daniel, maybe we're going to go to Professor Andiroglu, but maybe you can pull up the screen with the flyer with the call to action happening for the end of the month. Professor Andiroglu.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. This is very inspiring. But couple questions and kind of. One almost as a follow-up to Greg's question. Especially looking at the screen right now, the 6 startups that you're showing there. Do you have a starting point, let's say, in the form of, let's say, community pilot projects that could become the feeders for each one of these 6 that you have identified that could kind of get this kick-started? And if so, which ones are they? And are you planning on tackling them one at a time or as the opportunities come? Because, based on some of the work that we are engaged in, for example, we find that just having one pilot project in the community really makes a significant impact and helps thrust forward the whole initiative.
Mhm.
So even though that might seem like a small project, but the fact that, as a startup, some of those small projects also make it a tangible project to grasp better. So what are your thoughts on that? Is there something in the works already? And because that can, you mentioned, for example, the webinars that you're hosting and having 170 participants, all of a sudden, if you have a community project, that participation could be tenfold based on, the visibility. So
Absolutely. And for us, really, first off, we're, again, and this is actually getting to the ask, we're just getting these opportunities out there, so it's still early for us. That being said, we've had at least 4 or 5 companies apply for a pitch competition that are already existing companies, and I'm actually working on an MOU with a couple of different companies. First off, as I mentioned earlier, Blue Action Lab, where Coral Vita is based, and we're talking again about partnering with them for piloting projects that may, otherwise have the regulatory roadblocks here. But beyond that, there's another company in the UK called Carbon Capture that does the seaweed work that we're also talking with, building an MOU and them having potential expansion here. Beyond that, though, really, I, again, want to lean into the community side, right? And the fact is, we're still getting this out there to our community. Really, we just announced the deadline and really just started our marketing push to get these opportunities out there. I have another deck where I have a couple of the applications already, but we've gotten some qualified and exciting people on board already interested in starting our startups. But as far as actual MVPs and stuff, the real goal of the venture studio side, right, is to get people to just the idea phase and then MVP. So the pilots are actually a little further down the pipeline of where we're starting, because we don't even have people, right? There aren't even enough people here in South Florida to pilot these things right now. And we need to build that community, right? And really get that going. That being said, the other side is, we're always looking for collaborators, looking for existing players in the space. And I know you're at UM as well. So, if there are people out there doing the work, we don't want to duplicate it. We want to collaborate. We want to work to help expand that impact. So any way that, we can connect in, I'm still very much getting my connections, my feet wet here in the South Florida scene, and would love any connections on that end. So all in all, we're very early stage focused, right? And so the goal is that as we get more people in our pipeline and get more startups also applying for our pitch competition, we'll be able to really have both sides of, pre-pilot and post-pilot moving forward.
Well, that's excellent. I just want to quickly say that we should definitely connect, because looking at what you list under these 6, topics, the subtopics under each one, we do certainly have a lot of synergistic activities from our end within each one of those areas that perhaps could offer collaboration opportunities or opportunities for some of those pilot projects to emerge out of those. So let's connect and continue the discussion.
Absolutely. And, and one other point too is just that, and this actually why I brought up Ocean Visions earlier, they're definitely, Ocean Visions is very much approaching, trying to focus on academic commercialization. And I'm sure, as you know, there's some cultural or just red tape roadblocks that come with that. But, we're very much trying to, break free of a lot of those barriers and enable rapid prototyping, getting things going rather than waiting for things to be fully proven. And that's part of the fun of what we're trying to accomplish here. So no matter what, happy to work with you and see what we can build. And I just wanted to bring up, gosh, it was one other slide, but I'll come back to it. I think it was this slide. Just as far as, where we're looking to plug in, again, we're always looking to build our community. And so anyone else, I just want to create that open opportunity for collaboration.
Awesome.
So as you're mentoring these companies and providing them with the structure, how much of this is on an academic level and a marine level versus how much of this can you offer to help them form a real business? Because I
Right.
see a lot of the mentors that you have are really more brains than business. And wondering how you're looking at handling that side to make them into actually viable businesses.
Right. And so really that for us is why we build the partnerships with existing incubators and accelerators, right? Our goal is we're getting them to idea stage, and at the same time, the existing incubator and accelerator, it's in their interest to leverage their resources as well to make sure they have customers, right? So really what we're doing is, of course, yes, we want to make sure we have the scientific credibility. That being said, we also do have a lot of founders in our network as well, both ocean business and regular. We just launched an event the other week called Founder Friday, where we're specifically demystifying what it takes to found a business. But beyond that, either way, it's a combination of, yes, having the business expertise to lean on of incubators and accelerators that already have that built into their programming, but we do actually have that in our network as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I work with a mentorship network that just does mentoring. It's not incubating, it's not anything else, it's just mentoring.
That's cool. I would love to connect with that. That sounds great.
Well, we can get you to do a presentation. There's over 200 mentors that represent finance, marketing, HR, technology, all those other things besides the idea that they help with the different companies. So we can pursue that offline.
Really? Yeah, only 200? Just kidding.
Yeah, it's just down here in South Florida.
Awesome. I remember
these are mostly, people that have been successful in business and now want to give back.
Perfect. Yeah, and the best part of all of it, and I wanted to share this slide just with my contact info so you all have it. But the best part of all of it being in the ocean space, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, it's so collaborative, right? When we think about the problems that we're looking to solve, right, the bottom line is we have to work together on this. And a lot of people, especially living in South Florida, are passionate about these issues and don't realize they have expertise to contribute to actually solving these problems. And so, just to your point, Greg, they're already mentoring out of the goodness of their heart, but now they actually can really help facilitate real impact on local level too. So really excited.
Exactly. Daniel,
I love this.
Could you share the presentation on
Tulum
on your call to action?
Oh, hold on, sorry, there's two people talking at the same time. Sylvia, hold on one second. Who can you say that again?
That was Marion.
Oh, Marion.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I think there was a delay. Yeah, I love this. I love this model. Where are you active right now? You're in South Florida?
Yeah, so I'm in Miami, but we're actually, so the partner incubator accelerator we're initially setting up with is at Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale. But that being said, obviously having a footing in Miami is where I want to be. And I'm talking with Irela Bague, the Chief Bay Officer, Jim Murley, the Chief Resiliency Officer of Miami-Dade. And we're just starting initial talks to try to approach the port, get the port involved, because obviously it's in their interest as well. And based on other incubators and accelerators in the ocean space, they're all built off relationships with their port. And of course, what better port and bigger port to partner with than Port Miami. So we're looking into that. I'm just trying to get this off the ground to start, go wherever the opportunity is to start. But no matter what, we're going to be close.
Perfect. And Silvio is definitely. It's so funny. We were just on a call where he was called Mr. Miami, so it's like a perfect. He's like the perfect Miami contact, and to accelerate this. And this is something that that we actually really could really need in Tulum, because there's so many blue economy entrepreneurs and oceanpreneurs, as Sylvia calls them, and this is something that it would be great, because the Riviera Maya is super, super key, and it's a very precious ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And biosphere. So would love to explore scaling as well.
Thank you. Wow, that's really exciting, and yeah, we love that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're hosting a gathering for ecopreneurs April 23rd through 25th. So I would love for you to share about this at that gathering.
Yeah, would love to share.
Governments, amazing, perfect. We'll share details with you. This is brilliant. I love this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Daniel. And on the Port of Miami, I know the port director personally, Mr. Kurila. So when you think the time's right, I'm glad to forward along an intro, of course, even though, of course, you're going to want some public reinforcements on that.
Thank you.
Could you put up the your flyer for the how people can submit and find out more about the upcoming program and when the deadline would be?
Absolutely. So yeah, just to walk through. I know I started previewing it and I was like, no, this is a really deep rabbit hole, but but now we have time. So as I mentioned, so there are 6 areas. Just to give a little deeper dive, real quick. As I mentioned already, aquaculture, major opportunity there with only producing 1% of global aquaculture here in the U.S. CDR, carbon dioxide removal, greenhouse gas removal, sequestration, all that. That's a huge market as well. And really here, especially with shipping industries, that's something that is probably one of the bigger opportunities locally. But of course, really, when we talk about regeneration and reversing climate change, again, I, as a marine roboticist, get most excited about seaweed. I never thought I'd be saying that. Beyond that, again, climate, coastal resilience here in Miami is another big one, of course, with mangroves. I know where there's talks about building a seawall, but I definitely believe mangroves and wetland restoration is definitely going to be key in addition to reef regeneration. And then beyond that, of course, seawater as a resource. One other thing that I really care about beyond just ocean energy, which that one we kind of touched on already, but a lot of people don't know that sea level rise long before South Florida is underwater, we're going to deal with a major freshwater drinkable or contaminated freshwater crisis where seawater is actually contaminate our aquifers. And so creating the infrastructure for desalinization is actually really important for South Florida. And then my own moonshot idea is if we could extract hydrogen from seawater, that would be awesome because, otherwise they're mining deep from the deep sea for batteries. So all that being said, major opportunity here as well for that. Plastics are probably the lowest hanging fruit that most people know about already. But here, the oversaturation of nutrients in our water from wastewater runoff and agricultural runoff are both major issues that, again, seaweeds actually could be a major solution for as well. And then, of course, my personal favorite background in, all the shiny tech toys of marine robotics and, big data. But, autonomy in shipping is, again, another opportunity here in South Florida as well. And so again, as I mentioned, altogether, these have a much greater potential as collective impact and really, serve to actually facilitate each other's success. So with that, this is basically on our website. You'll see at the top, actually, when you go to the homepage, it'll pop up and say, apply to our opportunities for sea change. This is where we're recruiting applications for co-founders and existing startups. And we've set the deadline as April 30th, which is a bit ambitious, but fingers crossed. We've already gotten, I'd say, close to 20 applicants so far. It's very early, but the key thing is quality, not quantity. And we've already gotten a couple people that I would be more than excited to get starting a startup. So people who already have product development backgrounds and have been part of accelerators, so they know what it takes. But yeah, the website link again is either at the top on our homepage or just seaworthycollective.com/seachange. For anyone who emails me, I have a blurb I can share as well. With a separate flyer. Happy to share that with you guys. It's also on our social media, which again is at Seaworthy Collective or at Seaworthy Collect on Twitter because they limit the number of characters in your name. But all that info is right there for you guys as well. So thank you again, Sylvia. This is an awesome opportunity and some great people here.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. We're really excited about working together and collaborating with you. This was very much needed. Within our community, within the space, within South Florida in general, and it's nice to have you back home here after you're here. So I think that's great. If there's anybody that would like to add in any other details, I know that we have a couple of really amazing people that have joined from places like Puerto Rico and Albert, which is doing some projects with mangroves and that could be relevant. Or anyone else that has any other thoughts or questions before. I just want to be mindful of everybody's time and make sure that we end on time at the top of the hour, unless there's any other sort of questions or answers. Daniel, please also, if you can go and make a post. If you guys have any questions, there's a bar at the top. You can raise your hand here just so we can, call on you. Daniel, also, if you can, go on our LinkedIn Blue Economy group and post the flyer or something here, I'd love to share that, and we can all repost that.
Yeah,
as the case may be.
I'll do that right after this.
Super exciting to hear what's happening, and I think we need to make sure to arrange some other connections with you, with the other members of our team, of our core Blue Economy team, Stave in Australia, Dr. Fujise in Japan, Albert here. Yeah, but I think that he's dealing. He's a crisis. He's an emergency responder. So you got to be able to get him at the right time to make sure that he has the headspace for this. But he's amazing resource here in South Florida. You're going to be connected with Professor Esber, which is going to be another amazing resource. You already know the Founders Institute representative here in Miami, and Scarlett, and then does Scarlett, along with George Cummings, are United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 14 ambassadors.
Oh wow!
Yep. So we have a couple of those, and one of the things that I would encourage you to look at, that I would want to do, Daniel, is there's actually a database of all the SDG 14 ideas. So if you go on the United Nations, you can find a Sustainable Development Goal 14, and under SDG 14, there's a lot of subtopics for Sustainable Development Goal 14. And within all of those, there are a number of groups and submissions of people with different ideas. So it might be worthwhile to ping those folks and start to connect with them and see the projects and the ideas that are out there that they've already proposed, and see how we can integrate it. Professor Esber brought up a good point, which is what we can do in terms of real project to get off the ground locally. George Cummings does have a similar pilot project that he's getting off the ground in Cozumel in Mexico, where the government has agreed to use tourism tax to pay back sort of the center of excellence, right? So
Wow.
might be a close second, if not the first one. And he's submitted something with the UN and working with UNESCO to try to work on some of this preservation. And there's also some conversations that you might want to have with some of the natives. Tomas Lagos, which is on the call, introduced me to a Mapuche, one of the tribes in Chile. And this Mapuche representative has a lot of wisdom that we can learn from the tribes of how they've dealt with water in the forest, how they've dealt with water at high altitude, how they dealt with water issues in the desert, right? And a lot of this wisdom. So we're going to be having a conference coming up that's just for native wisdom and what we can learn both from agriculture and aquaculture, as well as a Blue Economy conference coming up, where I think that toward the end of April. So it'd be good to highlight some of that work. So those are some of the ideas that come off top of mind, Daniel. But again, I think everyone is here and surely excited, like myself, to support and join the cause. So thanks for joining. If anybody has any other questions, comments, please feel free to jump in. Otherwise, Daniel, thank you so much for joining the Blue Economy this time around. And let's see if we can use this to build capacity and issue some blue bonds to take everything to the next level.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you all so much for your questions and interest and support. It really means a lot. As I mentioned, we only launched 6 months ago, so there's a lot happening very fast, but I'm keeping up, and or at least doing my best at it. And the support here and in Miami and just in general in the ecosystem has been really, really incredible to see what we're trying to accomplish and help us out. So looking forward to working with a lot of you, and really feel free to reach out. And if you don't have my LinkedIn, I'll be posting in the group very shortly. So I see a hand raised.
Albert, Mr. Gomez.
Hey, sorry, I joined late. I caught the slide at the end which summarized, and Daniel, let's try to catch up after this, and I'll introduce you to a few folks on the spatial web that are doing digital ledgers for carbon sequestration.
Awesome.
It's with Yale Open Labs. We're collaborating with them right now, and we're bringing them here to Miami with NASA data that's already been shared with us. So it could be a good kickstart or a use case for some of the things you're looking at. And another team with the same group is commercializing we're doing a couple test beds in California, and we're bringing it over to Florida to do a couple of trials for exact technology you mentioned on one of your slides, which was hydrogen from water and also from feedstocks. And yeah, I just would love to chat with you more about that to show you that work. And then personally myself, I'm also engineering an IoT project with FIU, since I'm also involved in robotics, as Silvio knows. So yeah, maybe we could touch base offline on those three specific projects. The fourth project that's quite interesting is the negative impacts of aquaculture. Not necessarily ocean aquaculture, but in SIP structures and things of that nature and enclosures. Right now we have one of the largest with Atlantic Sapphire in Doral.
Right.
And there's some negative implications on that, since it's supposed to be a closed loop system, but unfortunately it is not. But I am bringing some technology to bear on aquaculture to resolve the wastewater reality in that field, and also in mold inhibition in indoor growing as well. So I'd love to talk to you about all those technology opportunities and the current test beds that we're bringing to South Florida. So thanks, Sylvia, for bringing this forward, and it might show you some good use cases on how to bring forward some other startups and the like.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Albert. And yeah, no, I mean, I didn't even know about all these things happening down here. So it's just awesome to see that, there are a lot of efforts happening. And, I don't know if you guys heard of Marine Research Hub, but I know that was an initiative a while back that they were trying to connect the efforts. But, whatever happened with that happened. All I know is we're trying to do it, and we're really glad to, just bring everyone together and really build this here. So thank you for volunteering that, and excited to work with y'all. Yeah,
and that's Albert Gomez, Daniel, for the record. And he mentioned the Ocean Sapphire. The CEO of Ocean Sapphire, it's a publicly traded company, I think from Norway, if I'm not mistaken. And
Atlantic Sapphire, yes.
Atlantic Sapphire, thank you for that. And the CEOs on the board, like myself, for the University of Miami's Masters of Sustainable Business program. So Professor Kelly could probably connect us with that, but you're better off, of course, debriefing with Albert Gomez. Albert, also, for the record, is someone I've learned a lot from in terms of global resilience systems, and is a leader globally around resilience and emergency response and management, and spends a lot of his non-existent spare time really focusing on how to not just prevent the problems, but also come in and try to fix things after in some of the worst situations, together with his wife, Dr. Allison Thompson. So just so you get some more context there, I think that he'd be a great resource for you. So thanks for jumping in, Albert. Appreciate your sharing your wisdom and volunteering your knowledge and your relationships to help Daniel here.
Connect Daniel after this, and we'll have a little powwow. I'll share some contacts and some activities.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just gonna post in the Blue Finance group, and yeah, I want to multitask getting everyone on LinkedIn right now, but yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll be able to connect after this. So, Sylvia, we got to get the chat working so we can post links.
Yeah, we do. I'm gonna need to look into that. But feel free to post it on the LinkedIn group, so it's even available more to the masses. And if it's okay with you and anybody else, then we'll try to download this recording and upload it into YouTube, so people can also have access to it and use it as a reference point, so other people can join the conversation, and we can multiply your time, which we know is very limited. So with that being said, that concludes, I think, today's Blue Bonds and Blue Economy call. Thank you for everybody for attending. Daniel, thanks for this initiative and this work. Really excited to have you here back in the community. And floor is open. We'll turn off recording in case anybody else wants to keep the conversation rolling. Daniel, again, thank you so much, and it's look forward to having you at the next bi-weekly call where we'll be presenting more solutions that I think are going to make a lot of sense for you. And let's look at how we can talk about the Earth shot for the blue economy, and we'll have more to dovetail into.
Absolutely. That's an exciting opportunity for sure. Thank you again for this opportunity. We really, really appreciate it. And great meeting you all.
Same here.
I'll hang out for a little bit if anyone has any other questions.